Are you looking to become the richest man in all of Yakuza Like a Dragon in order to fund all of those delivery help summons? Or perhaps you just want to unlock the game's optional party member? Or maybe you want both of those things, but you want to get through the business management minigame as painlessly as possible. Well, today I'm going to tell you how to make business management near effortless so you can start raking in the cash. But before we get into the video, I do just want to remind you that you can find links to all of my Yakuza Like a Dragon coverage in the video description below. I've covered the new battle system, the job system, job showcases, and more. Also, if you have any questions about this video or any of my other content, feel free to jump into my stream and ask me. I stream most days, link in the description below, and would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. The business management minigame unlocks fairly early on in your adventures in Yakuza Like a Dragon, and along with it, a lot of information is thrown at you pretty quickly. And because of this, you may feel overwhelmed or decide to put it off, or not do it at all. However, a lot of good things can come from sticking with it, such as making loads of cash, unlocking the optional party member Eddie, and unlocking the ability to fire a giant satellite laser at your opponents. And best of all, the employees necessary to do this with ease are all available to you as soon as business management unlocks. Now, this video will be broken down into the sections seen on the screen, so feel free to skip around if needed. So first things first, we need to recruit a specific employee, and to do so, we need to complete a quick side story. As soon as the initial tutorial part of the business management minigame is complete, and you have control of Ichiban again, immediately leave the building and go outside. Once there, you want to take a short trek around the corner to a little pier by the river, where you will see a bunch of guys huddled up around another. I've completed this, so I can't really show you what it looks like, but they will be there for you. Simply walk up and interact with them to start substory 18, after which you then want to follow it through to its completion. It's not that difficult, and we'll see you running around the map and talking to some people, with an eventual fight at the end. After you finish the substory, return to your business headquarters. Here we are going to do a few things as setup. But before that, I should just mention that while all of my in-game text is in Japanese, since that's the only version of the game that I own, it really shouldn't be an issue. So first things first, we need to hire that employee we just helped by going to the second option on the main business management screen, and then the second option on the following screen to recruit people. Find him there and hire him. After that, you want to back out to the main screen again and go to the third option where we are going to pull out a loan. Specifically, you want to choose the first option to pull out a bank loan, and then the first option again for the amount. For reference, the other loan options aren't really worth it, and we don't need any more money than the 5 million you get from the first bank loan option. Now that we have that, we need to buy an extra property outside of the initial one we've been provided. You can pretty much choose whatever you want, but in terms of return on investment, I recommend the Mahjong Club. Once you've purchased your desired property, back out one menu and go to Personnel Placement. Here you want to assign workers to your properties, but there are a few things to keep in mind. First are the stats each character has, which are represented by 3 bars. These correspond to the property stats, and each employee assigned to a property adds their stats to that properties. Essentially, what you want to do is make sure that all of the bars for the properties are in blue. You can still do business if one or more are in red, but you will make less profits. Also, don't just fill up a property with employees if you don't need to. If a property can be all blue with only one employee, only assign one employee. Alright, now that we've done that, back out again and go to the menu option to upgrade your properties. Here you want to use some of that money we took out on a loan in order to upgrade Ichiban Holdings, your initial property. As far as how much to upgrade it, just keep in mind what I told you before about the blue bars. Try not to upgrade it so much that the bars turn red and you're good. So now for the last step of preparation. Back out all the way to the main menu and select the second option to manage personnel. Then select the second option for your personnel list. Here you want to find Hanayama. Select him and give him some training. Not too much though, maybe just to level 5 or so at this point. Once done, back out to the main menu again and go to the fourth option. Here is where we will set our team for the investors meetings. For this, just set them as you see on screen. This will be your primary team up until about rank 50, but we'll get to that. Now with all of that done, all that's left to do is go back to the main menu and choose the last option to begin business. Do this 4 times until the investors meeting comes up, do the investors meeting, and then repeat the process. For the first few loops of doing business and investors meetings, you'll be paying off your loan, but once that is done, you should start making a decent profit. When this happens, be sure to continue investing in Ichiban Holdings, as well as training any of your employees that you have assigned. Just remember, don't do too much if you can't afford it, or don't need to. By this point, you should have a decent grasp on how all this works, and a decent sum of capital built up. For starters, max out Ichiban holdings and train the employees stationed there if necessary. Next, you will want to buy 2 more properties. Again, it doesn't matter too much which you buy, but the best return on investment will come from the 2 that I have shown on screen. It's in Japanese, I know, but just try to match the pictures. At this point, you may also want to hire new employees, so do so if necessary. Just don't over-recruit, as that does waste money. Continue going through the loop of doing business and investors meetings, and as you generate more profits, continue to invest in upgrading your 2 new properties. Once they are maxed out, you will want to sell the first property you purchased and purchase a new one. Again, this can be whatever you want, but the one shown on screen is a good one. After that, continue to go through the business and investors meeting loop, upgrading your properties and personnel as necessary until you hit rank 50. So now that we've come this far, I'm just going to show you what properties I recommend purchasing and in what order. You'll want to do this as funds become available to you. Also, you'll need to sell off properties that you currently own in order to purchase new ones, so just make sure that you are selling them off in the order in which they are generating you the least amount of revenue. And once you have purchased higher end properties, start upgrading them and your employees as you can. Finally, it is at this point that you may want to consider hiring some extra employees to assist Hanayama in investors meetings. When doing so, you'll want to try to hire SR or SSR employees, and look for those specifically that have a high persuasion stat. That's the top stat on their character portrait. Assuming that you've come this far though, you should be fine to reach rank 1 without any issues. So now let's actually take a look at the investors meetings and what you need to know about them. First, you can see in the upper right hand corner that there is a time limit. For the most part, this doesn't matter, and even if it reaches 0 before you take out each investor, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will fail, as failure or success is actually based on your approval rating in the lower left hand corner. Next, you will notice a color next to each investor's name. This really only matters for rank 20+, but essentially it corresponds to what they are strong and weak against, which is shown by a little diagram in the lower left hand side of the screen. Next, you will see a meter at the bottom. Each time you take an action with one of your members during a meeting, points will be deducted from here. You can see how many will be deducted by the number next to the character portrait. This bar will also gradually refill over time, but in the event that you need it to refill quickly, you can make use of Ichiban's CEO abilities, which he also gains access to gradually. And this progress can be seen in the lower right hand corner of the screen. The other main thing to take note of is when you actually select an investor to persuade. A colored text box will pop up with shields above it. This is their argument. Highlighting one of your characters and hitting circle for the Japanese version or X for the Western version will allow you to attack their argument. Attacking an argument with what it's weak against will break it immediately, allowing you to deal damage to the investor. Dealing enough damage to the investor, whose HP can be seen under their name, will result in them becoming persuaded and you gaining their favor. As with the argument text box, you deal more damage when using the investor's weaknesses. One thing to note here though, is that the investors may not necessarily use the same color of argument as their character is, so just keep that in mind. The meetings themselves will end when you have successfully persuaded all investors, time runs out, or your characters have been counter-persuaded. So with all that out the way, what do you actually need to do in an investors meeting with that initial party I recommended at the beginning of the video? First, you just want to make use of the characters, specifically the ones who aren't Hanayama, as they are cheaper to use, in order to counter investor arguments with their weaknesses. This is to minimize how much of your action points you're actually using. Once an argument has been broken, just switch to Hanayama and make use of his incredibly high persuasion rating to take out each investor. Because of Hanayama's stats, you can largely ignore weaknesses and strengths when dealing damage directly to investors until around rank 50, at which point you will want to be looking for some new people to hire in order to assist him. Finally, I just want to end with some general tips that can help you out. First, don't recruit a bunch of employees just to recruit them. Each employee you recruit means one more person you have to pay, which is less money you could be spending to upgrade properties or train your current employees. Whatever you do, just make sure that your estimated profits are higher than your business costs. This can be seen from the main menu of the management minigame. Next is to always make sure your employees are happy. Each employee has a little face on their employee card, and as you use them for business, this will slowly turn into a sad face. If left alone, they will potentially leave you. Always make sure you are going into your personnel menu and either hitting the auto cure button or doing it manually for each employee. Next is with regards to the random events that can happen after each time you conduct business. Occasionally, you will be given the opportunity to invest company funds. More often than not though, this is a waste of money and should really just be avoided. However, if you are given the opportunity to run a commercial, do make sure to jump on this one, as doing so will drastically increase your profits until the next investors meeting. I also don't recommend pulling out any more loans after the initial one that I recommended to get started, as they aren't really needed and generally will just slow down your profits. And if you are worried about the investors meetings themselves, remember that before them you can back out of the minigame entirely and save your game. That way, if anything does go wrong, like your game conveniently crashing just as you fail, you can just reload and try again. And that about does it. With this, you should now be able to clear the entire business management storyline and reap all of its rewards with relative ease. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. And as usual, feel free to ask me any questions you may have in the comment section below. Alternatively, you can find me over my Discord server or over on my Twitch channel, where I'd be happy to answer any questions. Links to both of those can be found in the video description. Until next time, take care.